that we're lazy or something. They can't understand it. But I think there are specimens and artists out there that are somehow perfectly built for it. But a lot of women try to jam themselves into a box, and it's really destructive.
Let's talk about Pi, because this film, I know you compare it to the rest of it, but for me, it reminded me a lot of Pi. It was your first feature, very accomplished for a young filmmaker, precocious almost. You can tell by some of the use of sound and music, that your style was already being formed. I mean, without being too self-deprecating, what was the experience like? You'd done a few shorts.
Yeah, I mean, it was hard. Like they're all very hard. There's never enough money. There's never enough time, and it seems exactly the same thing still. So we're just constantly, just trying to get the best that we can in the moment, and it's kind of the same thing. Work is really not that different, even if it's a big crew or a small crew. I mean, now we have a lot more people to help, so you have really, really accomplished, costume designers and production designers, and you're surrounded by people that really excel way beyond what you can do. So, that's an advantage, but it still comes down to the same, like trying to make something real, or kind of real, whatever that was. So that kind of works for the moment.
Most of your films have somebody in a situation of under great duress, great stress, whether it's mental or physical, actually. Is there a theme running through the films or not?
I think that's kind of what movies are about. They're kind of about characters that have an exceptional problem and exceptional conflicts in their lives and have to somehow overcome them or get destroyed by them. And I just kind of turn that into, instead of superheroes, it becomes more about, I guess, people on the edges of it, but they're kind of normal people that dealing with extreme circumstances.
Pi was one of those films in the golden age of Sundance, I suppose, which was sold straight away, and you won a prize there, and I assume you got an agent straight away.
Yeah.
And you said it was a good experience.
Yeah, it was a great experience. It was, we definitely went in under the radar. We would, like, in Variety and all the, those types of magazines, when they described the movies that were coming, we were the weird black and white movie, one sentence, and everyone else was getting these big write-ups. So we were kind of an underdog going in, and we left, and it was a really good situation. So it was great. It worked. It worked. It was kind of beyond our dreams of what could happen.
So the next step was to choose your next project.
Yeah. Well, while I was editing Pi, I started to write this big genre horror film just because I thought I would need to make something else. But my dream was to make Requiem for a Dream. And then when Pi was successful, everyone was like, well, that's great. What do you want to do next? And I sent them a copy of Requiem for a Dream, and no one called us back, literally. And so we had to go out and figure out how to get the money, and eventually it took a very long time. We raised the money independently, and then we made it.
With Requiem, did you feel like you came on a pace as a filmmaker? Did you feel like you were maturing? And
well, I think Requiem was a really good step for me because it took a lot of these subjective filmmaking ideas we had and all these kind of impressionistic film ideas we were doing, like shaking the camera and putting heat in front of the lens and all these different things we were trying to use to help tell the story through kind of more of an impressionistic way, and we were able to do it on another level. So Requiem, like the subjective camera, we were able to kind of get into this idea of split screen in the opening scene of Requiem, where you have two subjective POVs at one moment in time happening. And that was just exciting to kind of explore, and it led to a lot of ideas. And so the added complexity of 4 characters versus 1 character was kind of fun. It was very exciting to do.
And then, of course, you had this. You're working with Ellen Burstyn, who's a sort of, legendary Academy Award-winning actress. You've got your first taste of and a great cast of younger actors as well.
Yeah.
You really have a knack of eliciting these extremely good performances and extreme performances from people. How did you and she work together?
Well, Ellen was great. I was terrified of her. Not because she's scary in any way, but I was just in awe of her. So I didn't really know how to talk to her for a while, and then eventually we got into a groove when she started. I think the first thing we shot actually was the Tappy Tibbins TV show, which we had to shoot, a tremendous amount of footage in one day, and she had to go through, I think, 3 costume changes in one day, and she was just blown away by we really had prepared hard to get there, and the efficiency and the speed, I think she really got off on that. So, after that, I think the trust began, and then we just had a very good relationship, and I think, when you give an actor like that an opportunity, when they haven't had an opportunity like that in a very long time, they take advantage of it. And that's kind of been, from her and Jennifer Connelly and Marlon Wayans, who was a comedian, Jared Leto, who became a rock star. They all saw it as an opportunity to really go for it. And so very early on, I had the trust of actors. And that's really the most important thing you can have with an actor is trust. And kind of why it's gotten easier is because now actors are like, okay, he's not going to embarrass me, so I can really go for it. And I think most of the actors that come and want to work with me want to go for it. And and generally that's kind of the prerequisite.
But what are the things you do to put them at their ease or create trusting environments for them? There's some.
I think I'm very attentive and focused on them, and I also, I kind of I'm pretty straightforward with them. I say, look, what bothers me the most is when an actor goes out there and is left hanging to dry with it. They're giving it their all, and the film doesn't support them. And, so far I haven't done that, and that's my goal, is not to leave anyone out in the cold. So if you give it to me and it doesn't quite work, don't worry, no one will see it. So, I get actors to go pretty far, but they want to. That's really why actors, that's really why they're there, is to emote and to feel as deeply as they can. That's what they want to do. It's not in any way pushing them or torture. It's actually what they really want. They want to go off. And so they're excited when they have a safe environment to fully play and explore. I think, it's very easy to get terrified and scared after you get burnt once or twice. Yeah. And that's why you have a lot of movie stars that are, very safe.
Tell us about your relationship with Matthew Libatique, your DP. He's done all your films.
He didn't do The Wrestler.
Oh, he didn't.
No. I met Matty in film school. We were the two young. At film school, they had DPs, DOPs, and directors and other departments, and he was the youngest in the DOP, and I was the youngest in the director program. And he grew up in Queens. I grew up in Brooklyn, which is nearby, and we had similar musical influences, and so we hit it off as friends. And then I was lucky because he was also really talented, and we just made a film together, and it was very easy. Just the communication has always been easy, so it's been a very good collaboration.
Especially on Black Swan, I think some of the camera work around the dancing is breathtaking. How did you want the dancing to appear? You almost thrust the audience into the...
Well, I just wanted the audience to, hold on to the excitement and the energy and feel the emotion of it. So what we would do is, it would start off with me and the choreographer, Benjamin Millepied, and we picked which scenes of the ballet we wanted to focus on. And then Benjamin would take kind of the classical elements and fuse it with some type of more contemporary elements that he was good at and create a dance. And then I would give him notes, and then eventually we'd bring in the camera, the video camera, and we would just start moving with them. And as we move the camera around, I'd be like, Benjamin, can you get around quicker? Can she get around quicker? Or, and meet us here, because the camera doesn't really move as well as the dancers do. And then, and so it became sort of like a three-way. If it was a pas de deux, it became suddenly a three-way dance, which I don't know what the word for is. That, you know,
No idea.
the limit of my French. And then when we went to the stage to shoot, then, you know, we got into new complications of wardrobe malfunctionings, shadows from, if it was the final performance, it was a spotlight, so Maddie had to lower this spotlight and raise that spotlight so you couldn't see it, but it looked like a continuous spotlight so the camera could pass through and there was no shadow. So it was a dance of a lot of departments.
And the actors as well had to obviously be highly on their marks.
Yeah. Well, no, they weren't really marks. We were just very freeform. And so the camera was really, in a documentary verite way, really feeling where it was going. And it became the artistry of the operator, you know, who I designed the movement and the shots, and I showed it to him, and then he interpreted it, well, in the moment, because the dancers, of course, sometimes landed, sometimes didn't, went higher, went lower, and he had to sort of photograph it the way, and we had someone who aesthetically was brilliant, so it worked out well.
Let's go back. Requiem for a Dream was another enormous success. Played in Cannes, made some money, I think.
Eventually.
Ellen Burstyn was Oscar nominated for it. You wanted to move on to a bigger scale at this point. You know, The Fountain was the next. That was a very troubled production in that you had to reconfigure it halfway through. Your lead actor, Brad Pitt, dropped out. You're suddenly in the sort of the top echelons of Hollywood big budget filmmaking. Was that whole experience sobering or
I don't know, it was
interesting for you?
It was just work, you know. It was just, you know, in retrospect, you think about all we went through, and it was very intense. But for us, it was inch by inch, moving forward, and you know, okay, there's a new problem today, you know, and let's figure out how to solve it. So I just tried to stay in the moment as much as possible. I think if you ever really kind of conceive how many choices you have to make a film, it would be paralyzing. And you couldn't do it. You sort of have to constantly, I guess it's, I could get probably in trouble for this, but the way women talk about childbirth, they forget about the pain so that they can have a second child. And it's sort of a similar thing. You really forget about the pain somehow. And you have to be naive to go out and make a film again because it's a real, they were always really tough.
Are the ideas around The Fountain something you always wanted to put to film?
There was a lot of ideas. It wasn't like I always wanted to. It was I started working on it when I turned 30, which, you know, is a nice youthful age, but it's like the first time you go, wow, I'm not going to be 20 forever, you know? I'm not going to, and then I'm not going to live forever. So, and at the same time, both my parents were diagnosed with cancer, and we're going through all different types of hell on that front. So mortality suddenly became really part of my, started thinking about it a lot and started reading about it, and then it kind of led me to this story.
So it was originally Brad Pitt, Cate Blanchett, big budget, and then it came down a little bit, but it's still a very large-scale film.
Not really. $35 million is, I mean, it's a lot, but not a lot. But we
did a lot with $35 million.
Yeah, it fell apart, and I kind of retreated. I had been in Australia for 6 months building Mayan pyramids, and so I retreated back to New York, and
The film was abandoned at that point.
Abandoned